Fox Sports 1340 AM presents to you WMER, Wrestling Marks of Excellence Radio, starring The Firm, J-Lo, Nephew, Corey, and Docta D, bringing you the latest up-to-date information on professional wrestling and sports entertainment. Now, live from the Fox Sports 1340 studios in Hopewell, Virginia.
Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome back to WMER Radio, your Wrestling Marks of Excellence. I'm your host, G-Lo, with Docta D. We have a special guest for you right now tonight. I'm not going to give it to you yet. I'm going to let Docta D do the introductions. But what a week in wrestling we had. We had a Night of Champions. We saw people get fired. We saw people win the title. We've seen a lot of things in wrestling this week. We have a lot to talk about tonight. But before we get started, and now the leader of the firm, founder, creator from Newark, New Jersey, by the way of Washington, D.C., by the way of Temple Hills, Maryland, he's your smart mark and your heavyweight champion, Docta D. Johnson. Docta D, how you doing this evening, sir?
Take your time, G-Lo. Allow me to take this time to talk to him. Allow me to sing to him, Glenfather. The story goes like this. Girls and boys, welcome to the island of Misfit Toys, where you won't find Rudolph and Yukon Jack. You'll find the most internationally known, unknown, and homegrown group of smart marks in professional wrestling and sports entertainment today. What's going down, Mark Nation? This is your world smart mark champion, your Mark Knight, your Mark Marvel, your Mark of Steel, Docta D, the Doctor of Devastation, the Almanac Information, the Mark of Excellence, and yes, as always, I am a mark for this business. The firm is indeed in the building, making ourselves known to all the millions. Any questions, comments, shout-outs, promotions, like us at Docta D and the Firm on Facebook. Follow us at Firm Wrestling on Twitter. Also watch past episodes of the Docta D Show on staranddaryljohnson.blip.tv with guests such as Bret the Hitman Hart, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Jake the Snake Roberts, living legend Bruno San Martino, unpredictable Johnny Rod, ECW original Axel Rotten, WWE superstar R-Truth, and a host of others, including our very special guest today who appeared on my show. And coming soon, the brand new monthly wrestling series, Docta D and the Firm, with special guests Booker T and Gilbert on our first episode. Shout out to my man Bad Dog Brad Roy of the Maryland Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion, the Baltimore Bulldogs, for being our guest last week. Also, shout out goes to our Firm fight analyst Keith Champ Creed, all the way from New York City. Also, shout out to Mr. X, the head of Loafers Sports Bar and Grill in Catonsville, Maryland, where nephew Corey, our cameraman D Biggs, and myself always attend to watch WWE pay-per-views. We did enjoy Night of Champions. I tell you, this summer we really been seeing the performance level step up, and we're looking forward to what's going on next on Raw and SmackDown with the furthering story of the firing, if you will, of Awesome True and the Mark Henry era finally becoming world champion after 15 years in WWE, and also continue to follow the future of Hulk Hogan as he announced his leaving of TNA Impact, and also look forward to the nationwide premiere of ROH in syndication. Now, before we introduce our very special guest, let's get our upcoming events out the way. Confirmed upcoming events for this month. Friday, September 23rd, EWA, Eastern Wrestling Alliance, Rage in the Cage, Paul Cedars Hall, Parkville, Maryland, bell time 7:30. Go to EWAMaryland.com. Saturday, September 24th, RCW Real Championship Wrestling, New Burns Arena, Baltimore, Maryland, bell time 7:30. Saying what's up to my man Pat and Brad Bass. Make sure you get me a comp, brother. I will be there this Saturday. Just go to RealChampionshipWrestling.com. NWL House of Pain also this Saturday. North of the Ring, Neil Superior Memorial Cup 7 at the Armory in Martinsburg, West Virginia, featuring former WWE superstar Ed Shrinker Samu of the Samoan SWAT team. Bell time 7:30 p.m. Go to NWLWrestling.com. And last but definitely not least, Friday, September 30th, MCW Maryland Championship Wrestling Rage TV taping at the MCW headquarters and arena, also known as Gilbert's Pro Wrestling Academy, Southern Maryland, bell time 6 p.m. All right. Now, without any further ado, I present to you a man that has seen it all, that has done it all. 30 years in the business, from a mild-mannered referee in the NWA, WCW, and WWE to the legendary, original ECW Super Manager of Champions, Pro Wrestling Illustrated's 1997 Manager of the Year. I give to you, ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Mr. Bill Alfonso. Mr. Fonzie.
Captain D, you guys are great. You guys talk a lot of smack, man. You guys are on. You guys are providing everybody with a lot of information, and that's what it's all about, man. People love to hear wrestling stories and love to hear, you said Mark Henry, 15 years in WWF, WWE, finally world champion. Wow, you got a lot to cover, man. And I'm just happy, G-Lo and Dr. D, to be a part of your show, and I'm all yours.
Man, we happy to have you, Mr. Alfonso. We happy to have you, man. I remember being in college and at Coppin State University. Give a shout out to all the Coppinites listening, watching ECW. We used to tape it because we didn't have cable in the dorms, but we used to tape it and pop it in on a Thursday night or a Friday night after class. And me, myself, Dr. D, and all the other wrestling fans in the dorm at Coppin in Baltimore just watched ECW. And we loved Bill Alfonso, man. We loved you.
Wow, I had a lot of good times in ECW. I was on, it was like an underground thing. You said you couldn't get it sometimes, and we had to tape it and watch it. So I was started in May in 1995, and I stayed there 5 years, made it 7, and I was a part of that extraordinary venture that got a lot of momentum and took off. I was just proud to be a part of that, and I had a good spot, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Hey, man, I tell you, Mr. Bill, one thing's for sure, you have been all over the world as a referee, as a manager. I mean, you practically have done everything that you have possibly dreamed. But the question that, of course, that I would like to start off with was, how did it all happen? What made you decide to be a part of this business there's some parts of it today that I'm going to ask a little bit later on what's missing. But what was it that got you hooked to be a part of professional wrestling?
Dr. D, everybody's got that famous question, how did you become a referee? How did you become a manager? How did you become interested in pro wrestling? I guess like everybody else, I seen it on TV one time, then I went down, I was born and raised in Tampa, so that was like a hotbed of pro wrestling back in the day. We're talking about 70s, and when I was a kid, I used to go to the home wrestling armory and watch people like Eddie Graham and Greg Malenko. I said, wow, this is me, man. And I grew up small, so the closest thing I can get, I wanted to wrestle, but I was so small, the next best thing was being a referee. So I started hanging out with the guys, Rocky Johnson, King Curtis, and they hooked me up. They sent me to Paul Bosch in Houston, and I started refereeing with him. And next thing you know, 30 years later, I'm talking to you guys.
Man, wow. That's good. My question is for you, Mr. Alfonso. All the guys you wrestled that you managed, which one is your best? Because I believe that I'm a big Sabu fan, and I love Sabu and Rob Van Dam. And which one of the guys that you managed you think is the most guys that you like coming out to the ring with?
Well, I'd say Sabu was a lot of fun. Also, Van Dam, it was like a threesome, you know what I mean? Sabu was so crazy. He was the hardest working guy out there. I mean, this guy would go through tables and cut his arm almost off and stitch him up. He would go right back. He was unbelievable. So I would say it'd have to be Sabu. Not taking nothing away from Van Dam because he was one of a kind too, but Sabu done some unbelievable. When you say hardcore, this guy was really hardcore.
Well, I was going to ask as well about the comparisons, because of course, you were not only with RVD and Sabu, you also with Taz, and if you can, if you will, explain to us, what was it like managing each one of them? Of course, you explained just now, their comparisons and contrasts, and similarities and differences, but what was it like also to become a manager? Because I wanted to always ask, about what's missing today in professional wrestling versus what it was back in the day. Because I often hear about the talent, the production, the booking, if you will. Is it called booking still? Is it creative? Is it writing? Tell us about all of that, sir.
Well, we used to have places to go, you know. There when I started, it was territories. I mean, Florida was the territory, Georgia was a territory, Louisiana was a territory, Mid-Atlantic was a territory, so you always had somewhere to go. You can go for 6 months and wrestle. Now there's only 2 places to go. If you're lucky, you can get in with Vince or TNA Randall. That's the only 2 places to make a living, you know. But back then, there was a territory in almost each state, you know. So we had places to go, and after say you and G-Lo came in Florida as a tag team, and you guys were here 6 months, and then you guys were good, so they would send you after they were done with you here. They would help you get booked in Texas for the Binerics. They'd call Gary Hart up, who was the booker then. Back then, say, hey, I got G-Lo and Captain D. Dr. D. As a hell of a tag team, and they said, okay, we'll bring them in September 1st. So you guys will start September 1st and go another 6 months or a year there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then after there, you go to Carolinas for Mid-Atlantic for the Crockett's, and then after there, you can go to Georgia and work for, you know what I mean? Or you can go out and work in Texas for Dory Funk and Terry Funk. So there was always places to go. That's the things that the guys are missing out, because there's so much raw talent out there, so much talent. You know, Dr. D, you see it all these young kids, but they don't have nowhere to go.
Right.
They don't have nowhere to wrestle, only on weekends, you know?
Yeah. Definitely understand that, which is why I support the indies fans. And because one thing's for sure, as I stated before, it's all about the humble beginnings, because you never know who is next. You know, some of these indie guys that I find. You see them down in Florida with FCW, starting out in FCW, now in WWE, and then of course there's also TNA and so forth. So there's a lot there, you know, that we could see, but it's just, for some reason it's just not happening. There's too much great talent that I'm watching in the indie feds, especially out here in Maryland, you know, going to some of the different federations and watching them and looking for, when I watch the guys, you know, I kind of scout them myself, you know, saying, what if I was responsible for bringing this talent in, you know, to WWE, you know, I would always, and looking at them and saying, you know what, yep, that's the guy that we want. You know, so it's kind of that deal. You know, when I go to the shows, you know, I watch as a fan, but I also watch and see who's next. You know, and the thing that I love is the fact that you get a chance to meet them early, because, as I always say, you never know.
And that's one thing I like about indies as well. Even down here with GXW and different promotions that we have down here in Virginia, you like to see the young guys. You see them out, they hang out with you. They don't mind telling you their story. They don't mind putting in work. They don't mind going to the gym on Tuesday nights after work. But I also believe, you know, and what's missing in wrestling today is a manager. Those managers who get on the mic and talk. I think a lot of guys are missing out, Mr. Alfonso, because they don't have a manager like yourself, or Bobby the Brain Heenan, or Oliver Humperdinck, or Colonel, a couple of those guys, managers, are great managers, where they have a mic piece. Now all your manager are divas. Sometimes I don't want to look at a diva. I want to hear the people's mic skills. And nothing wrong with me. I'm a man's man, but sometimes I like to hear the mic. I love to hear Bobby the Brain when he was on a mic. Bobby Brain could take somebody that wasn't any good and make them good, because he would talk make them good by talking good.
And we also miss the daddies. We can't forget the daddy comments. Everything is daddy when you come to Bill Alfonso.
Yeah, like you were saying, a lot of these young kids, they just need some help, you know. They just need some help, so that's where the manager fits in. You said it, G-Lo. They got some of the young kids that can't speak good, and they just got to learn. That's like saying they got to have places to go. That's what brings up the territories again. So you can get polished up in Florida. Then by the time you get to Texas, you had manager and the people helping you out. that's what's missing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Definitely know what you mean. And, we up against the time, ladies and gents. We're getting ready to take a small commercial break. We'll be back with Bill Alfonso some more. Please hit us up on Twitter at Firm Wrestling, on Twitter. Also hit us up on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, the Firm is definitely in the building tonight. We have special guest Bill Alfonso, one of the ECW originals, and been in the wrestling business for 30 years. We'll be back with you after these commercial breaks.
K&L Barbecue at 1410 Maple Street, inside Cavalier Square, Hopewell. Wants you to know they have great specials on the daily menu, such as hamburger steaks, grilled chicken, a lightly fried chicken sandwich, and of course, the best chicken and dumplings in the Tri-Cities. And don't forget about their world-famous barbecue and sauce. Dine in or carry out at K&L Barbecue. Call 458-4241. That's 458-4241 for K&L Barbecue.
What you doing, honey?
Playing the new Hail to the Redskin Scratcher. Wanna watch?
Cool. And here's the play. The quarterback drops back to pass. Now she scrambles to the right. Now back to the left. Now to the right. Now she's into the secondary, heading down the sideline. She could go all the way! Hail to the Redskins. From the Virginia Lottery. Not real football, but close. You could win up to $100,000 or 2012 season tickets to home and away games with our Get to the Game sweepstakes. Odds of winning top prize 1 in 860,000. Odds of winning second chance sweepstakes dependent upon number of entries received. Every weekday, you get the Dan Patrick Show. Alrighty, we're off to a great start. It's Dan Patrick, joined by the Danettes.
Hoes before bros. Bros before hoes, I'm sorry. Nervous.
Are you screwed it up? Weekday mornings at 10. Fox Sports 1340. Being in business for over 60 years qualifies the Walter DeWitt Roofing Company as experts in their field. The Walter DeWitt Roofing Company does all types of roofing repairs, from residential to commercial and industrial, and now specializes in green roofing. Whether your roof is tin, slate, copper, or asphalt shingles, they're the only company you need to call for all your roofing, siding, and window replacement needs. Find out more at walterdewitroofing.com or call 804-862-4040. That's 862-4040.
For all your storm damage needs, Walter Witz Roofing. Mention Fox Sports Radio 1340 AM. Receive $100 off any job over $500. Walter Witz Roofing.
Fox Sports 1340 AM presents to you WMER, Wrestling Marks of Excellence Radio, starring The Firm, J-Lo, Nephew, Corey, and Docta D, bringing you the latest up-to-date information on professional wrestling and sports entertainment. Now, live from the Fox Sports 1340 studios in Hopewell, Virginia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to WMER Radio, Wrestling Marks of Excellence. I'm your host, G-Lo, along with Dr. D and our special guest, Bill Alfonso. We would bring the whistle, but it might hurt your ears while you're driving home. But we thank Bill Alfonso for coming in tonight. Hey, before we get back to Mr. Alfonso, we want to hit a couple of things I think is important to hit in pro wrestling, and which is Mark Henry winning a world title after 15 years. After 15 years in the building, in the business, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand, Mark Henry was almost out of the WWE several times because of injury. His first couple years, he was injury prone. But Mark Henry survived the cuts. Mark Henry survived the falling of ECW when he was the ECW champ with Tony Atlas as his manager. And now Mark Henry, congrats to Mark Henry as being one of select few guys, African Americans, to say that they held the world title in the WWE. Our hats go off to Mark Henry. Mr. Alfonso, what do you think about African Americans being WWE champ or world champ in wrestling in general? You've been around for 30
way
years.
overdue. I think the ethnic in the professional wrestling is a big thing, and my hat's off to Mark Henry for hanging in there, and he deserves every bit of it because he's an athlete. First of all, he's one of the strongest guys in the world. That's on the shoot, and he stood in there, man. And Mark Henry went through a lot of stuff, and then they put the belt on him, and couldn't put it on a better guy. Congratulations to Mark Henry.
Now, what I want to ask you, Mr. Bill, is about the ECW that we knew and loved compared to what people call WWECW. You know, you've been a part of that from the beginning to the very end. You know, what were some of the things that you liked about your entire ECW career up until the point where WWE had?
Well, we had a market. We didn't know there was a market. They started off as Eastern Championship Wrestling, and Paul Heyman got in there and got the book, and he was a friend of mine from WCW.
Right.
And I had just left WWF in early '94. I just finished up because I was one of the last referees they hired, and then business was doing a little, business was off a little bit, so they let me go. Vince gave me a severance package and said, "Hey, Fonzie, the door's not closed on you, but we're tightening the belt. We're letting go some people." So, and then Paul Heyman called me. I was sitting home. Paul Heyman called me and said, "Hey, Fonz, we want you to come up, and you're just fresh out of WWF at the time. It was WWF, and do some stuff. We got this thing called the ECW." I said, "ECW? What the hell is that?" I didn't know too much about, you know, the indies and all that, because I had a good career, WCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, WWF. So I went up and started, and the deal was I was supposed to come in for 4 weeks and be anti-violence, and then get choke slammed by 911, and then I was out of there. But my gimmick got over so good, people hated me. You know, I was stopping the violence, and they didn't know what kind of market they had. You know, there was a big market for the blood and sex and violence out there. So it started, and then I went and because Taz had like 4 or 5 gimmicks before he became Taz. And they put me and Taz together. He was Monkey Boy, Tasmania, and then they put him Taz and with Fonzie, and we took off. We both got each other over, man. We had a hell of a good time. Then after Taz grew and became what he became, they put me with Van Dam and Sabu, and it took off. So I had another 3 years. So it was great, man. It was great. A lot of freedom. It was a part. It was like a family. Even though we didn't make a lot of money, say we were making $20 million a year, but we were spending $25 million a year. We had no corporate sponsors. We were trying to do it on our own. Paul Heyman was struggling. We were getting a couple of bounce checks here and there, but you know, that's all part of the business. But we had a hell of a time, and I was on 21 pay-per-views there, and became a star. Became a manager, and it was great.
And you're definitely a legend. I also do a lot of the ECW guys, or even yourself, have a sour taste in the mouth towards Vince McMahon for stealing your product? Because everybody knows that the Attitude Era is the reason, is because of ECW.
Right, I don't have a sour taste about Vince. Vince was good to me because I worked for him on several different occasions, and I made good money with him, and he treated me good. So it was just part of it. I mean, I'm kind of glad he bought it, because we would have went under and had nothing. You know what I mean? Eventually, because we were spending money and not making enough. So it was okay, and there's a little bit of sour taste because there was 100 guys, and Vince only took 20 guys with him when he went. You know, he had his own guys already, and he watered it down. But he used us on some of the first show pay-per-views and stuff. So I have nothing bad to say about Vince. You know, cool. A lot of guys do, but it's not me. You know, he treated me good, and he did what he had to do. But now it's a whole different product, you know?
Yeah, now, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of this information that you're getting right now from the legendary Mr. Bill Alfonso is going to be available in his new book, which you can order on his website. That's FonzieWhistle.com. FonzieWhistle.com. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, a few things I want to throw out there. Of course, your match with Beulah McGillicuddy, and I also want to talk about something that I did not know about your relationship with El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez, how you brought him in. But I want to know, you know, what happens to all these shirts, and you know, how do I get a Bill Alfonso hat and shirt? And probably a whistle. Is there any of that around that I could?
Well, I've given so much stuff of that away. You know, every time that we do a pay-per-view, I'd have something made up. But I've given most of that stuff away to the kids that come to the shows and charity events and stuff. So there's still some stuff floating around out there, but it's hard to get. I wish I would have kept some of it. But speaking of El Gigante, when I was in WCW, they brought Giant Gonzalez in to play basketball for the Atlanta Hawks, because Ted Turner owns the Hawks, he owns the Braves, he owns CNN, he owns this, he owns that. but he couldn't pass the physical stamina to play for NBA. So they offered him a spot to be a wrestler. He didn't even know what a wrestling was. So they had to train him. They trained him for a year, and then he didn't speak good English, and he was so big. He was 7'7" on the shoot, so he couldn't drive. So he needed a personal assistant, and me and him got along real well. And they asked me when I was in WCW refereeing, they said, "Hey, we're gonna put you with Giant Gonzalez. You be his personal assistant," and it worked out to be great. And I was with him 3 years. The 2 years in WCW, then we went to Vince, and Giant Gonzalez got another year out of us there and made nothing but money, and was actually his personal assistant on the road. So not like a manager on TV, but we became real good friends, and got him to all the shows on time, never late, and we went around the world together. So that added a couple more years to my career too, being with him. Got him the movies and stuff. It was great.
Glad to hear that. Hey, for the wrestling fans out there, or the new wrestling fans up and coming, can you explain where the whistle came from?
Well, Paul Heyman was the booker in ECW, and when they switched me from refereeing, which you would think would be an easy transition to be a manager, I couldn't really talk that. Even though I was around the business already 20 years at that time, you would think I'd be a natural. Oh, I can talk and this and that. So Paul Heyman said, "Hey, Fonzie, we're going to put you as a manager." When he put a whistle on you and he blow the whistle, make you feel mad. So I didn't like the whistle at first. I was embarrassed to blow it. You know what I mean? I didn't like it at all. So I came the next week without him. Paul Heyman said, "Hey, Fonzie, where's your whistle?" I said, "Oh, I forgot it at home." So they rushed out and got me another whistle, and then I learned to love it. And now the people say, "Oh, you're the guy who blew the whistle." If they didn't know who I was, they knew about that whistle. So it actually worked out pretty good. And I couldn't do interviews at first. So Paul Heyman said, Tommy Heyman said, "Just treat it like a shoot." And then I was one take Fonzie after that. It turned out to be real good for me.
So now let me get this in. So now after all of that, you become, in 1997, you become the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Manager of the Year. What was your first reaction when you won that award?
Well, I couldn't believe it at first. I said, "Yeah, we're competing against Vince, WWF at the time, competing against WCW, and they picked me." So I knew I was working hard, and I was thrilled that they recognized me, and I knew I was doing something right to get that kind of recognition. And it was a big thing in my life, to get that kind of compliment. Managing. I didn't know I was doing such a good job. I knew I was working hard as anybody, but I was working against Jimmy Hart and all these guys that had been legendary people for years and years, and to put me in there, it made me feel good, gave the company a little recognition, and we went on with it. So it was a very good thing there,
So, Mr. Bill, do you have any upcoming appearances that you like to plug at this present time? I'm sure.
Well, I like to plug the next time I'm on your show. You call me. I'd love to be on your show, Dr. D. You know what I mean? You and G-Lo, call me anytime.
You're more than welcome. Anytime you want. You're more than welcome.
Anytime.
You're more than welcome. Anytime you want to come on, you just give us a call and we have you on, Mr. Alfonso. It's always a pleasure and an honor to talk to a legend of this business. I truly consider you a legend. I know we have great managers, but I put you in my top 5 managers, great managers of all time. Behind Bobby the Brain Heenan and the Grand Wizard and Classy Freddie Blassie, because what you did. And what you did in the 90s with Taz and Sabu and those guys in ECW, you made them household names where you was just a wrestler where guys in college would watch or guys in bars would watch. You made them a household name, and we appreciate you for that.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and if I have something coming up, well, I'm basically retired, and I do some shows here and there, and I do, the conventions, like the NWA convention they have that they do in Charlotte. I do something like that. I'll come up and do a show for you guys now and then, but I'm basically retired, enjoying I got a grandson, almost 2 years old, who's the love of my life, so it takes up a lot of my time, and thank God They say when you get a run and make some money, buy a house and pay for it. That's the first thing I did when I got in WCW. Is I bought me a little house, paid for it in a couple of years, and I've been living in it ever since. You know, so the business has been good to me.
That's great advice, Mr. Alfonso. We got to run. We want to tell you thank you, sir. We appreciate everything that you have done for this business. We appreciate you for spending your time with us. We'll definitely have you on again. Dr. D, closing words, and we're getting ready to get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Alfonso, and the words of my nephew, Corey. If you are not confirmed, then consider yourself denied. End of story.
End of story. Shout out to Hooters in Chesterfield.